Welcome to the Ref Room, hockey talk for referees, coaches, players, and fans.
Broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.
With your hosts, Scott Smokin, Silz, and Brad Baumruck.
Live.
The Ref Room starts right now.
And now your host.
All right, it is Wednesday. Welcome to the Ref Room, everybody. It is a very special day. We got a couple things going on. We had Brad celebrating his birthday, so happy birthday to my compadre here. I'm not even going to peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because we got too much to talk about today. We have a very special guest. I am so excited to have him on the show. He's a friend of Brad's, and this gentleman has worked 5 or 6 seasons in the NHL. His resume is deep. The American Hockey League, the International Hockey League, the United Hockey League, the Colonial Hockey League, the Ontario Hockey League, East Coast. I could just keep on going. And that is former referee from the NHL, Mr. Bob Langdon, joins us today. Thanks for coming, Bob.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, really excited. Now, Bob is up in the Toronto area, so I guess we'll get started right away.
Yeah, go right there, huh?
Yeah, we always like to talk a little NHL at the beginning of the show. Just kind of gets things going here, gets the blood moving. But yeah, 15 seasons now without advancing in a playoff round. I can't believe it. Can you?
I can't believe it.
Well, it's funny to me.
It's funny. Well, we were talking beforehand. I mean, Toronto has just made some moves. I mean, they spent a fortune on getting forwards. Didn't do them very much good, I guess. When you look at things, I mean, maybe the investment is in a goalie. I know that Scotty Bowman was one of the guys that doesn't like to invest in the goalies. He would prefer that you invest in the forwards. That's what his thought process was. I mean, that's why we haven't had a big-time goalie in Chicago in a while that we've paid big money to. I mean, Crawford was affordable, I guess, for us. But, maybe this is going to change things. Carey Price seems to be winning, and he's getting big bucks. Maybe that's what everybody needs to start doing again.
Toronto's built for regular season. They're river skaters. That's all. There's no toughness. You got regular season, and then playoffs is a whole new ball game. It's a different style. It's a different game. And Toronto's built for regular season, and they looked great on paper this year because they played against a bunch of slugs all year. They played against a Canadian division that's just weak and terrible, and they never played a tough team all year. And then they got beat by muckers. They got beat by a best goalie in the world, hot goalie, but muckers. They just got ground down.
That's unbelievable. Well, tell me something. As you look back, like, we've seen some really great players in Toronto before, and they just can't seem to get it done. They spent big money on getting Babcock there. They thought that was going to be like the end-all, be-all for them. But, what do you think they're going to have to do for the future? I mean, are they going to end up cleaning house now, or do you think they roll with the people that they have? I mean, they do have some good players. They just weren't able to produce during the playoffs. Like you say, it's a different season.
Yeah, I don't think they care. Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment doesn't give a shit. They don't care. Leaf fans are Leaf fans. They're a different breed, and they'll go to the game no matter what.
That's
so
true.
They could have a crappy team. They'll still pack the place. They'll send merch. They'll charge whatever they want. They'll still fill it. So why? Who cares? I think they'll get rid of Dubas and Keefe, but just for optics. But really, why do they care? It's money.
Yeah, I mean, they are the most successful franchise in hockey, and we've got a similar situation with like the Bears here in Chicago. I mean, they claim they want to try to win, but it just doesn't seem to work out. It doesn't matter. The stands are packed. They sell out every game. They're making money, and the Hawks did that for a long time until there was nobody left in the building, and it was pretty disappointing to walk in that place with a couple thousand people. The announcers from other teams were making fun of them, and then they, when Dollar Bill finally passed away, and Rocky came in, the family wanted to change that, and they did. They invested, and they've done a great job with, getting us back. But we're still paying for our Stanley Cups here, I have a feeling. So it might be a little
I remember reffing a Chicago Wolves game, and the Blackhawks were playing down the road, and the Wolves outdrew the Blackhawks.
Isn't that amazing?
That was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. Well, we got a lot of questions for you.
Hey, Scotty.
What's that?
I remember when Bill Wirtz, inducted Dennis Savard. They retired his number or whatnot, or they were doing something, and he went up there to talk, and the entire stadium was filled, and it was just booze. Like you couldn't cut it. I mean, it was really hard being a kid, being a Blackhawks fan. You couldn't buy anything. They didn't have any merchandise. Like, you had to pay to see the games on TV, like
closed circuit TV. I can remember going to the Bismarck Theater, which was the Bismarck Hotel that the Wirtz family owned at the time. It's called something, I don't know if it's Allegra now or something. They've changed it a couple times, but we would have to go there to watch the games. And, you paid, it was a theater that you sat in to watch the games, all closed circuit.
It was something else.
But people were passionate. We loved our team and our Blackhawks. I watched them lose that game to Montreal on that long shot from beyond the blue line, almost from the red line, that cost them a chance at the Stanley Cup. So I've endured the pain for years as well. So I'm pretty excited that we've had a run of 3 cups here. It's been really nice. But we got a lot to talk about, especially referee-wise. For all those of you that are joining us in the comments, if you have some questions for Bob, we're going to definitely try to get to some of those if Bob is kind enough to do that. But I don't know. What do you think, Bob? Do you think the NHL has gotten a little softer? I mean, when you were around, it was a lot tougher, especially in the playoffs. I mean, regular season, you really don't see much hitting at all. Playoffs, it's a little different. But how do you think the game has changed?
Super soft, like baby soft. Like it's awful now. It's nobody play. You just don't play with intensity because they're paying guys up front now, so no one really has to work for paychecks. The only time you really see a guy go all out is in a contract year. It seems, and it's unfortunate. And you don't have the toughness. The rules don't help. They don't let you police the game like they used to, the players. So that definitely attributes to it, but it's a softer game. It's like society. It's a softer society, so it trickles down to hockey, I guess.
But the players are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. Have you seen that over the years? I mean, you had to have seen it as you were working through the league. You put enough years in. You've had to have seen the increase in speed and strength and everything else out there.
Yeah, like players. Like when I started, guys would they'd be having a dart in the room, they'd be having a dart in the hall, and having a donut and a hot dog in between periods. And now it's protein shakes and workout and off season and nonstop. So players they're more fit, they're stronger, they're faster, but they just want a whole different style of game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we go ahead, Brad.
I particularly don't enjoy that the NHL has removed the enforcer in the game. They don't want an enforcer on the ice, so now you have guys that are your top skilled players that you're paying all this money to, and their heads are getting ripped off by a cheap shot. Like, Bob, what do you think on that?
Yeah, you just they don't police the game themselves anymore. Like the best year of hockey I think I ever had, the funnest year, was the last year of the IHL, and they took out the instigator rule. It was awesome because guys, you wouldn't chirp a guy, you wouldn't cheap shot a guy, because the guy would just turn around and knock you out. I had a guy in Port Huron one night, slashed the guy in the back of the leg. The guy turned around and looked at him like, "Are you kidding me?" And the guy started lipping him, so he just knocked the shit out of him. Like, that's the way it should be. Like, yeah, there's a slash, there's a fight. Yeah, it takes
accountability.
Accountability. Yeah, take the cheap stuff out and does hold people accountable for sure.
Yeah, I think that's something the game is missing. I know for TV purposes they wanted to change it, and I know the Europeans didn't really like it, but I don't think the Europeans are all that soft. What do you think? I mean, there's some tough guys that came from Europe that have been playing over here that can take care of themselves, or do you see it differently? You see more of it on the ice than we would, but behind the scenes, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, there's some Euros that are tough for sure. They play tough. They have tough guys over there. They have skilled guys and tough guys. They just play at a different style over there. But here, you should be held accountable. Like, I never saw, when a fight broke out, I never saw one person leave. I never saw anyone get up, turn the channel. That put butts in the seats. I'm sorry, but if hockey, if you want to watch hockey and not see a fight, then you probably shouldn't watch hockey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the WWE has made a fortune over the years, or whatever wrestling has been, which is, even though we know that it's not 100%, real, hockey's 100% real. Like, the blood that you see is actual blood. It's not,
look at the UFC. Not staged.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Look at the UFC. Like, so popular because it's just two guys beating the hell at each other.
That's a great point. So, maybe the NHL needs to reconsider that, and, which would change everything, because now you got a lot of guys that are very, I don't want to say small, but they're small on the smaller size. They're fast, they're quick, they're skilled, but it changes the whole dynamic of your roster if now you've got to have tough guys out there, and a little more interesting, especially at playoff time.
Exactly.
Well, how does the NHL, like, as a referee, how do you guys, the NHL, like, you watch it on TV, I mean, if somebody even reaches in and gets a little hand on somebody, like, hand goes up, it's immediately called. It's so tight. Like, you could never even call a game like that in amateur hockey. You get laughed out of the building because you'd be putting guys in the box like every 10 seconds. Like, every time you drop the puck, here's another penalty. How did it get to that point with the NHL, and how did they talk to you guys to enforce it that way? And, what was the whole procedure?
I think it came out of the lockout year. So 2005 was the lockout. And then after that, they brought in the obstruction. So everything was obstruction. You couldn't hold players up. They wanted the game faster. Like, Gary Bettman's big thing, he wants goals. He wants lots of goals. Well, that little, he's like a little midget. He's like a little weasel. He doesn't know anything about hockey, but he runs the league. Like, he's the boss. I remember every interview he ever did, he'd have to go get makeup on before. Like, he's a little interesting fella. But he's brought in. He said, nope, American market. In the American market, they want to see goals. They don't want to see fights. Well, he had no idea about the American market, because I reffed minors all over the U.S., and they loved fights, cheap beer and fights. But when the NHL brought in obstruction, then everyone thought, oh, we need obstruction. We need not to hold guys up anymore. So they brought in that you can't hold it. You dump the puck in, defenseman can't slow a guy down. So then injuries started that way, because everyone was just flying all over the ice all willy-nilly. So It just and then they wanted it. A penalty's a penalty. Well, as a referee, you know that's not true. There's a time and a place for penalties. You always call goal scoring opportunities, high risk penalties, and obvious penalties. That's all you need to call. Little ticky tack holds and hooks, it just ruins the game, and that's what the NHL and even amateur hockey, they really stress that now in Canada. It's terrible.
Well, Brad brought up an interesting point. I don't know if he brought it up on the show, but we were having a conversation, and Brad, the point that you made was, many years ago when you were reffing a game, the players and the coaches were like, "Really, you're going to call that? You're going to call that?" Yeah. And now it's like, "You're not going to call that? You're going to let that go? You're not going to call that?" I mean, that was a great point you had, and it is really true. The game has changed.
Yeah, the entire thing was it was the coach. You'd put your arm up, and the guy basically killed the guy with a stick. And you put your arm up, and they're like, "You're going to call that? Really? That's a penalty today?" Like, what? And then we switched how we're policing the game, and now it's, why aren't you calling that? But it's just it's an optic. Like, the entire mindset has changed, and I get exactly where Bob's saying. They want to see goals. I don't think, in my mind as a hockey fan, I don't need to see 100 goals in a game. I think a 2-1 hockey game or a 1-0 hockey game.
A 1-0 game is great.
Is much better than a game that's 7-5, like a shootout. Yeah. Like, another thing I don't like is the shootout rule. But let's not get.
Don't even get me started on the shootout.
Oh, you're not a fan.
I went there.
It's the worst thing ever. I run minor hockey tournaments up here. Yeah, I help run minor hockey tournaments out here. And first thing I did when I got on the board, I took over from my dad when he passed, and mom's on it. Some friends are on it. And I said, shootout's gone. You got to go to the shootout. Like, you got to finish it. You either have a tie, and then if it's a playoff after that, it's just you play till someone scores. Hate shootout.
Well, I like the sudden death overtime. I think that's awesome. I honestly do. But we're starting to see now here in the Chicagoland area, we're starting to see teams wanting to play 3-on-3 for 5 minutes and then do the shootout following the NHL. We've seen that with Central States, and it's kind of interesting, and it is kind of fun because for a lot of the players, they've never even had the opportunity to do that before. They're just starting to do it, so they've only had a couple shifts, and they don't realize how wide open it is when it's 3-on-3, and it changes the whole dynamic. So they like it. It's confusing at first, and then they learn, and of course they're going to adjust as they get more shifts. But we are seeing more of that, and I think that's probably here to stay. I don't mind it. I like the shootout. It's a different dynamic. It's a different show, so it doesn't bother me. I still love sudden death and playoff hockey. You can't beat that.
I think the shootout takes a team sport and makes it a one-on-one sport.
Yeah,
it's a show. That's all it is. It's for show. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It was interesting. There was a team that got permission from one of the minor pro leagues, and they decided, I think they only did a couple games of it, but they ran the shootout before the game.
Yeah, that was Scott Brand down in Winston-Salem, I think. Yeah.
So I think they only did it like a couple of games, but
it
was an interesting idea so that, you had to play through the rest of the game because the shootout was already determined at the beginning of the game, but it just adds time and I would say some boring parts of a hockey game that I don't think you need. I think a shootout's boring. I'm sorry. I just don't like it. If you want to play sudden death and have an overtime and be done, that's fine. I think the best way to do it, and this is my opinion, is if you win in regulation, it's a 3-point victory. If you win in overtime, it's only a 2-point victory. And if you lose,
no.
You don't think so either?
If you win, you should get 2 points. If you win, you should get 2 points. If you lose, you should get 0 points. 0.
Right.
Because I don't care if you lost in overtime. I don't care when you lost. You lost. You might. There's no. I hate participation ribbons. Drives me nuts.
That's
I agree with that. It is a participation point because a lot of times teams will be like, let's just get through the 3 minutes, get our point, and we'll get out of here. That's all we needed. So we're happy.
Right.
Yeah. If you want a point, get better.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's a good point. It's a good point. No pun intended.
Ooh, that was good.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Well played.
Yeah. So, Bob, can you tell us a little bit about what is the typical work week when you're working as a referee in the NHL? What is your day like, and like your travel? Who makes your reservations? Do you fly first class? Do you fly on a team plane? I'd love to hear some of these stories.
Yeah. Well, the only time you flew first class is when you flew enough and you used your upgrades, which most guys do. They have upgrades and whatever. We flew up here, the Star Alliance, which is, I think, Air Canada, Delta. I don't know what it is now. There's a bunch of them. But I was American League NHL, so I was going all over the place. But we had a travel agent out of Toronto that we just said, all right, we call, and we got to pick our flights. They booked it all. We got to pick them all. Before 9/11.
Rental cars, or are you limousines, or are you taxi cabs? How do you get to the airport?
Oh, limos for sure. No, rental cars. I drove as much as I could, even if it'd be like 10 hours, whatever, because of course you get mileage. I'd rather put the money in my pocket. I didn't mind driving, but you'd fly into if I was working American League and NHL in an area, I'd fly in to a hub city. I'd set up shop there, rent a car, and drive back and forth. I hated unpacking and packing, so least amount of times. But we booked our flights. They booked them all. We just picked where we wanted to go and what time. I was a day of game flyer.
Do you fly together, or are you flying separately all the time? Are you always on your own?
You rarely work with the same guys in any city. You just, the odd time, if you're lucky, you get to work back-to-back games with someone or be in the same city. But usually it's a pretty lonely gig, like great for single guys and someone with no kids. But you're just all over the place, and you're on the road. You're alone, but you just book it up. And I was a day of game flyer. I hated going in the day before because it's just a wasted day for me and a day away from the kids and that. So I'd always fly in day of game. They hated it just in case things went wrong, but I did a lot of things they hated, so it is what it is.
Well, how many? So you're going to the airport. Are you? You're flying coach. You're carrying your bag. You're checking your bag. So do you ever get to fly on one of the team planes? Like, let's say it's a back-to-back game. Let's say it's Chicago in Cleveland or in Ohio one night, and they're in Chicago the next night, and you've got the back-to-back. Do you ever get the back-to-back game like that? The home and away game?
Oh, you got back-to-back, but you just made your own way. The only time I heard some guys the odd time back in the day had to fly with the team somewhere just because of just so they made sure they got there. But no, they didn't like you being anywhere near the team to socialize. And no ref ever drank with players after ever.
That's smart. What I was going to ask you, what are some of the rules? Is there like rules against socializing with coaches or players? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you're not supposed to. They frown on it. It looks bad perception wise, but
sure.
Of course, we drank with players and we drank with coaches. Of course we did. Of course they do, but you're not supposed to, and you're not supposed to tell people you do, but I don't care. Who cares? You're all men. It's a game. It's like you go, you do your job, you go after. You're all human. You're all hockey guys.
Yep.
There's some guys that you try not to because you'd probably punch them in the face, but most guys are pretty good.
Who does your laundry since you guys are on the road all the time? How do you get your equipment all nice and clean and looking so good?
Oh, we stayed at Marriott, so we got laundry service.
Okay.
Yep.
Good to know.
That's right.
I didn't know if you guys gave it to the people the equipment managers from the teams, and they kind of took care of you when you were in town.
If you were in a city back-to-back nights, then equipment guys were great. All American League, NHL, all the minor leagues, equipment guys are the best. They're your best friends.
Yeah.
Because they get you sticks if you need a stick, even though I might have needed a stick the odd time for beer league. Yeah. But anything you want, they get you.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
So in terms. Oh, go ahead, Brett.
It's that I was going to bring up, Scott. You got to be your best buds. Those have to be, because nobody else is going to sharpen your skates and not mess it up. I mean, there was even quite a few cities when I worked just junior hockey that there were quite a few cities that I knew I could walk in there and ask the equipment guy, and he would sharpen my skates for me.
Sure.
And all you had to do was bring them a 6-pack every couple of times, or offer to buy them dinner, and they were all super cool. It's kind of the relationship you wouldn't think you'd make, but the equipment person and the athletic trainers really become people that you start to lean on.
Yeah.
You ever have
See,
your?
I only sharpen my skate. I sharpen my skates once a year. Twice I did once because I stepped on something, but once a year, you got to work too hard with sharp skates. You can glide sideways with dull skates as long as you got edges, dull. And then the equipment guys, they were great because if you needed new Under Armour, underclothes, and socks, great guys.
Now, in NHL, did you work the 3-man or did you only work the 4-man system?
Just the 4-man. But the year I was doing it, we were still doing 3-man in the American League and 4-man, so I'd be going back and forth all the time. I like the 3-man better because then you just do your thing, which you just go out and you're consistent all the way. A lot of guys, there were some guys that we didn't really click in the National League, and even when I was doing 4-man in the OHL, some guys you just don't click with, so you kind of try to feed off each other. And then when guys are calling penalties in front of you, it looks bad. But when I was in the NHL doing games, working with guys like Bill McCreary, Terry Gregson, Rob Schick, Paul Dvorsky, they're not a chance, even though they wanted you to and they told you to, like, there's not a chance I'm calling something in front of one of those guys. Not a chance. Like, of course, the league would say, oh, if you see it, call it. Absolutely not. It's just respect. Like, those guys have been around forever. Like, you're not going to – it just looks bad, even though it probably – if it could have been a penalty and they didn't call it, there's no way you're showing someone up. The league hated that because, of course, they wanted you to call it, but it is what it is. There's no way you're doing that.
Who was your favorite referee growing up that inspired you?
Well, I started reffing minor hockey when I was 11, and I never really followed the refs. But then I started to, like, because they didn't wear helmets and stuff, like a guy like Billy McCreary. Coho was great. They're guys with character, because you used to be able to have personality back then. You used to be able to joke around, and everyone knew Kerry Fraser. You used to be able to joke around with the fans and the players, and they just want robots now. But like Bob Myers, he was the first guy that ever got me to referee, hired me in the Colonial League. And then Andy Van Helleman hired me in the National League. So there's lots of great Hall of Fame guys that I've worked with, luckily enough.
Yeah, I think Paul Stewart came through Halliburton Hockey Haven. We were having a conversation before the show started. And funny enough, Bob went to the same hockey camp I went to. And Bob's significantly younger than I am, obviously. But he's from the Toronto area. And this hockey camp was like 135 miles east of Toronto. It's a small town called Halliburton. So we were in the conversation. Yeah, we actually had refs that would come to the hockey camp back then. I mean, the Blair family owned the camp, which they owned the Minnesota North Stars at the time, and they had like the who's who of the NHL players that were there. It was great. I mean, an unbelievable experience, and great memories even to this day. And I'm sure you probably have some of those memories as well.
Oh yeah, Paul Stewart was one of the guys too. Like I remember reffing with Stu. I actually got some pictures, luckily enough. When I was on the ice with him, and he was like a mentor on the ice. He would like literally stop and tell you something and give you a helpful hint. And he's another guy. He would have been a great, because he supervised me in a bit in the American League after he retired. And he's a common sense guy. He knows what you should. He's not a subjective supervisor that a lot of supervisors would say, hey, at 2:20 in the second period, there was a neutral zone hook that you missed. Well, that's horseshit. Like, who cares? Like, did it affect the play? Was there an injury? Like, it is. But Paul Stewart he was a great supervisor in the fact that he would just be not subjective. He'd be like, hey, got to get to the net quicker, or great call there. Like, just a guy like that. But he's outspoken, and he would have been a great NHL supervisor. He still would be, but Gary Bettman doesn't like him. The league doesn't like him because he speaks his mind and he has an opinion and he's a character guy, and they don't like that kind of guy.
Who do you like in the NHL now as a referee? Who do you think is probably the best ref or two in the league now?
There's a lot of guys that I worked like there's like 5 guys there that I came into the league with, like Wes McCauley. I actually, every year you work your first game, the next year your first NHL game, you get a plaque. The guys you worked with presented it to you, and I actually worked Wes's first National Hockey League game with him. I was working in Columbus. And I think it was Coho I was supposed to be with, and he was sick, and Wes was in Cincinnati on a day off, so he drove up quick, and so I reffed. It was in Columbus. Wes's first NHL game I reffed with him, which was pretty cool. Wes is a great guy.
Well, he's got Wes was personality. A hockey player. I mean, he's the only referee really that is kind of known in the league now, in my opinion. Yeah. Everybody knows who he is because he's got personality, and he just does things marches a little differently to the beat of the drummer, and that's a great thing. That's what makes it
And
special. I mean,
and that's Wes, and that's the way I ref. Like, he just does his thing, and it helped that his dad was late John McCauley. Like, he had a lot of pull, and all the senior guys know Wes and have known Wes since he was little. So, he's a hockey guy, though he gets it, and everyone else, I think, is a little too afraid to do what Wes does.
All right. Well, here's my next question. I know you're Canadian, but it seems like we don't get any American referees coming into the NHL. NHL seems to be wanting to hire guys that played D1 hockey that really have no grassroots experience. At least that's what we've been told. Can you elaborate on that, or your thoughts with regard to that?
Yeah. I think what the NHL does is just horseshit now anyway, but they've had to hire so many Americans, so many Canadians, and so many French guys. That's what they always used to have to do. And then they decided, they got this big kick, and I don't know if it was Gary Bettman or who it was, that they thought, oh, we better get some ex-players. So we better find some ex-players. And then they started, I think they do like a combine for, like they used to do for football, and they do that for referees now. Like, come on. Like, who cares? The guy can do how many push-ups and do a 40-yard sprint or whatever. Like, can he referee a hockey game? Like, stuff like that drives me nuts. But they're looking for ex-players. Well, it's a different world from reffing to playing. Like, yeah, you can understand the game. Of course, you're not going to know the rules because most players have no idea about most of the rules, but you just don't have a feel for the game. But the way they want it now, a penalty's a penalty, and that's why you see it the way it is, because they're bringing up players and not referees. They're pushing. USA hockey, especially the NHL's bypassed a lot of great USA officials. Well, Hockey Canada too, like great hockey officials. They've just bypassed them because they want players. They want that guy that's, he was a player, he must be good. So then they try to say, all right, now you know what a penalty is, but they don't have a feel for the game, which referees should. Yeah. It's killing the game. It's hurting it a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny when you do see these guys, and we get some guys that have played professional hockey. Basically, they've played overseas and they've come over and become referees, and they're really good. They're really good skaters, but it does take them a little time to feel the game out and become familiar with what they should be calling. But they're smart enough to ask the questions. They know what to ask. They know what to be looking for, and then it's just a matter of getting some time and some mileage in there, I guess you would say. But it always seems to work its way out.
I think they want it that way because Wes McCauley was a player. So, yeah, and he turned out to be an amazing ref. Dean Morton, he's still reffing. He came in when I did. He played one game in the NHL and got one goal, Detroit Red Wings. But they were like, these guys are hockey players when hockey was tough, and they're good players. They get it. Dan O'Rourke played in the minors. He's still reffing. Yeah. And then, of course, you got Stewie. Stewie was a tough guy in the minors, and then he played some NHL, and he was a tough guy, became an amazing ref. Kevin McGuire, he reffed for quite some time. He played for the Leafs as a fighter. Like, you get it, and you've had it, but now that's all they want. That's all they're looking for is ex-players.
Yeah, actually, this is
Scotty,
good question.
I think the hardest thing that a lot of people don't realize from the outside world, even as players and coaches, every game has its own personality. Yeah. And the referee sits there and goes, where is this game possibly going to go if I don't enforce this here, or maybe I let this go, or I have this happen, because that's hours of you being on the ice and seeing different things and what the results are. And you pick and choose. Like a penalty, I get where they say a penalty is a penalty, but some games, if you have two teams that are playing against each other and one team is just basically beating the snot out of the other team and the other team's a bunch of quick finesse guys skating around, well, you might let some whacks and stuff go from the team that's just beating the snot out of the other team and concentrate on the big penalty. And then you have the finesse one that's not fighting back or anything. Well, they whack somebody. You might take them to the box to make the game even. We're trying to make the game as safe and fair and even as we possibly can, without
game management
also interjecting ourselves.
See, that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand as fans, and even sometimes as coaches or doormen. They don't understand the the aspect of the game management.
Yeah, it's a lost art, and that's to get. I know it'll probably get brought up. The whole Tim Peel incident. That's what happened. he just got caught saying something stupid on a hot mic. So they should have fired the guy in the camera truck that had the mic on, because he wasn't saying, I'm going to call a penalty. I'm going to call a penalty on that guy. Screw that guy. He was like, hey, I needed that penalty, or this is a good time for a penalty. Like, every ref does it. If a ref doesn't say they do it, they're either a shitty ref or they're a liar, because you sometimes you need a penalty, and you don't have to go looking for a penalty because there's enough things happen. If you need a penalty, it'll come to you. You just need to manage it, and it's not marbles. It's not like even up. I got 5 marbles in this pocket, 2 in this.
Right.
There's no such thing as even up, because that just snowballs into a goner. But you just things will come to you, and you just manage and call what you need to call, and let the game unfold how it unfolds.
No, that's interesting. I totally agree with you on that, and I think, unfortunately, the comment was probably taken out of context in the wrong time period, and it's sad, but it's
great guy. I did lines, actually. He was around so long. I did lines for him when he was an NHL trainee coming through the OHL, and I played in a celebrity golf tournament with Peeler, and I've known him forever. Great guy. He's a stylish guy. People think he's arrogant. He is what he is. It's the Peel Cat. He's a great guy. And some guys don't like him. He made a long, long career, and he did really well. And what a shitty way to end your career, by getting screwed by something taken out of context. And then
you've had a lot of people have that happen over the last year or 2 or 3.
Oh, I mean, the thing that bothered me about it the most is people questions his integrity, and the worst thing you can do to a hockey official is question their integrity, because that's what you have. That's what makes you a great official. And there was no way it had anything to do with integrity there.
Well, we got a couple of questions that are coming in, so I want to put a few of these up. First one comes from Marty.
Scotty, I saw that one come in.
Yeah, what do you think of video review?
A video review for goals? Sure. Like if it crosses the line, yes. Goaltender interference ones, they're just ticky tacky. Like, if you hammer the goalie and you're really obstructing the goalie and preventing play, there's 2 referees. They're going to see it. You don't need to review it. Like, if it's bad enough the first time they've seen it, then yes. But crossing the line, video review. The offside, the millimeter skate blade up in the air, those are just horse shit. Like, those are uncalled for, and the guys doing it, like, they have Toronto, the war room in Toronto. They're ones that make the call no matter what. The guys on the ice, you got the video guys in each arena, video review guys there, which are just mostly pointless anymore. And then you got the refs now sitting like the Euros do in the Olympics, and that they got their little iPads and they're going with their microphones on and they're looking at it and slowing it down. It's like, dude, you saw it the first time. It happened split second. Offside, not offside. Like, I don't like that stuff, and hopefully it changes, but they do what they do.
I don't think the NHL realized the ramification of reviewing offsides. I don't think they thought that there would be this many overturned calls. And you're looking at something from 90, 85 feet away, and in a split second, and the blade is off the ice, that much. I don't see anybody seeing that. And not only that, they have to slow it down to such a slow speed. I just don't think they thought it through as much as they had really thought. Yeah, you want the game to be perfect, but the MLB, they proved, they were using some of those automated pitchers.
Yeah.
And the first game that they had it in the minor league that they were testing it in, they had to throw out the pitching coach and the head bench coach from one of the teams because the umpire was going exactly with what the electronic umpire wanted called. And they both got mad and had to throw them out. So I don't think perfection is always what we're looking for. I think maintaining...
It takes out the human error in the game, the human element, and it makes a really boring product even worse. So you just made your shitty, boring product that you have NHL regular season into people turning it off. Like, I don't watch it. It's awful. Like, people just turn it off. Yeah, it's too bad. It's unnecessary.
So there's some proposed rule changes for USA Hockey coming up this year because it's a rule change year. They're talking about taking delayed offsides out of hockey. Of course, we don't have it. I don't know what the rule is in Canada, but, here once you hit Bantam age, which would be 13, 13 and above, they get delayed offsides. They're looking at eliminating that, and possibly even for men's league, as well as you won't be able to ice the puck on the penalty kill, which here you're able to not ice. You're not able to ice the puck through Bantam, which is 14. Once you hit 15, which is midget minor, you're allowed to ice the puck, and high school and JV, all that stuff. What's your thoughts on some of these proposed changes?
Well,
as
we
far as
have
that goes?
we have delayed offsides here in every age. It's the way hockey's been for a long, long time. I remember playing when I was younger, that when delayed offsides came in, and there was at one point delayed offside, you couldn't even dump the puck in until all your players had come out. So you had to wait to dump it back in. Like it was a weird thing. But delayed offsides, if you take delayed offsides out and you can't ice, it's going to, well, first of all, it's going to slow the game down because I don't think players are that skilled enough to figure that out. But I think you'll just have 100 whistles that'll last a year and they'll get sick of it.
Yeah. Well, it would have to last 4 years in the United States because they only change every 4 years now. So do you guys have rule changes? Do you have four-year rule changes, or how does it work up in Canada, Bob?
I think Hockey Canada does that. Yeah, I think it's 4 years.
All right. Well, got a couple other questions. Brad, jump in anytime. I'm just
rolling
down. I'm on a roll here, so I'm really excited to have Bob here, and I've got questions.
Scott, I told you beforehand. I know Bob. I've sat and talked to Bob. I've talked to Bob via text. I've talked to Bob on the phone. I've talked to him on one of these things. I know a lot about him, and I knew that this would be fun. So I'm here as a silent partner. I'll kick in as I go.
Okay.
You got all
you
the
can ask
questions
anything. I don't care.
Answered.
Well, we appreciate that. So let's talk about speaking to players on the ice. Player does something stupid on the ice. Do you yell at the players? Do you talk to the players?
See, I'm a little different than most referees. A lot of referees are similar. Like I'll tell a guy to like. I try not to swear a lot, and I try not to swear here a lot, but I'm probably going to. If a player's being a dick, I'll say shut the fuck up, like smarten up. Like I would rather, and coaches are the same. Like many coaches I've talked to, and I still talk to in all the minors right up to the show, they would rather me to tell them to shut the fuck up or smarten that guy up than give him a bench minor penalty anytime. If a player's being a dick, you got to let him know. You can't sit there and bark at them the whole game, or they'll just tune you out. It's like a coach yelling at a player; they'll just tune you out.
Yeah, I think some of the coaches would prefer you say something to the player because they're like, I've already spoken to that player numerous times. He doesn't seem to get it. Yeah. If it came from you, he might understand what you're trying to tell him. Which is
100%. Like they don't want, and I know Hockey Canada that you can't swear at players. You can't. That's their big bugaboo. But I helped my mom. My mom runs minor hockey out here in Woodstock, and I went back probably 3 years ago now. I reffed some Bantam and midget games, and I remember I had like 2 no-hitters in a row, like no penalties at all. And people are like, what the heck? What's going on? And the kid does something dumb, and he starts chirping, like because that's what players do, and they get away with it. Well, when you yell, shut the fuck up at someone, they're like, whoa, and everything's silent, and then they just play hockey. Yeah. Like sometimes it's the most honest people use profanity.
Yeah, it works sometimes, I guess. What about, if players do something stupid, do you expect, like in the NHL, we don't see a lot of officials getting hit, like a player going to make a check and he drives them right into, it happens maybe to the linesman sometime on the blue line in a situation, but, you got 2 guys, moving like freight trains at high speed coming down the ice, and they know the linesman is right there. In the NHL, do those guys know to kind of back off, or do they just take the linesman out? They don't care. He's part of the game. Hit him if you feel like it.
Like as a player, I remember it's the same thing. Like you're hitting a guy, you're contacting a guy, you're trying to finish a check. You don't really see anything else but that guy. So sometimes you get hit. Like as a referee, I've gotten hit a few times. Like I've got my tooth knocked out 3 times. I got my ear almost chopped off by guys colliding, and the stick come up and smash me in the side of the head. Like. Yeah. It happens, and the only time I ever really yelled at a player, probably a few times, and even if it wasn't shot at me, it was at a linesman. When a player head down takes a clapper, no matter where he is, what's he doing, and it hits the linesman or it hits me, I would literally go out of my way to chase that player, even if it's going in the opposite way. I would chase him, and I'd give him quite an earful because, it hurts. It's a stinger.
Yeah. Well, I saw a game, getting off the subject of this, we were talking about the 3 and the 4-man, but a couple of years ago I was with Blackhawks game, and one of the officials, obviously he was not feeling well at the start of the game. He had a bottle of water out there and, probably had flu or something like that, and he ended up leaving the game about 5 minutes into it. And we had the referee becoming a 3-man system, with one guy going basically just, top of the circle to top of the circle. He wasn't even going all the way down. Only saw a linesman cover once. Late in the third period, a linesman came down and covered. No penalties called on the opposite side of the ice where the official was not. He only called a couple penalties. They were on the side of the ice that he was on. Your thoughts on going back to a 3-man system in the NHL, or you think those days are totally over? Can't do it. You got to rely on TV. You got to rely on the replays, things of that nature.
Oh, they would never do it because then you couldn't have that kind of judgment. They don't want to put that kind of judgment back in the officials' hands because they want to be able to control everything. That's what the video review is, and you can't miss anything. Well, even with 2 guys, you miss stuff. I like the one guy. I like the one ref. I just don't think – I know there's a lot of guys because in the 2 referees, it's a lot of backward skating. You're pivoting. You're not going forwards a lot. You're going backwards way more. And that took a long time because there was a lot of guys, senior guys, that weren't the best backward skaters. So it was an adjustment when they went for 1 referee to 2 referees. But now I think guys are in good enough shape. I think they should be able to do it. I just don't think there's enough – they have enough skilled and quality enough refs to handle a game by themselves. So I think it'll just stay 2 referees.
So in terms of when you guys are at the rink, how far in advance are you guys supposed to be there before a game starts?
I think they want you an hour and a half, an hour 15. An hour's good, but like some guys, they go all out with their stretches and riding the bike and push-ups where I read the game notes. I had a coffee and I sat with my feet up reading the game notes or watching TV. I watched the best was in Washington. They had a nice TV, and I always used to watch The Simpsons or something. But I got in a lot of trouble for that because Dave Smith was our athletic. He was our trainer for the officials. And he always get mad because I didn't stretch. I never stretched. And he said, "You're going to need to stretch." And I go, "Well, when I get too old and I need to stretch, I'll stretch." So I remember Andy Van Helleman gave me shit, and he came in and goes, "Listen, Smitty wants you to stretch. So if you're just sit on the floor and pretend you're reading the game notes and pretend you're stretching." So that's all I did. When Smitty was there, I just sit on the floor pretending I was stretching. But they guys get there pretty early because everyone has a different routine. So that was mine.
Bob, can you explain the game notes? Because like in amateur hockey, we don't get that. That starts to happen when you work different levels of upper level hockey. Can you explain what you're looking for in the game notes? Because I remember, I used to look, and first thing I would look at was PIMs. That's what I would look for too. And if I saw the 2 guys that had the highest PIM numbers, I'm like, well, we're gonna be looking for them on the ice sometime. Then take us through that thought process, because you mentioned the game notes 4 times, and I get what you're saying, but I don't know if everybody else does.
I personally just read them because I like to see the stats. I always like to see stats. I didn't care. Every game's different. If there was a game before where these 2 teams played and there was a brawl, everyone's all panicky. Well, it's a whole different game. You probably have no penalties. So the game notes, to me, some game notes, depends what city we're in, had old articles, newspaper articles and that, and you always see if you can find your name and see if you're getting shit on. I just read the game notes because I like to see who was in the lineup and who wasn't, and who was cool. Some guys, especially in the National League, it was cool. Oh my God, I'm gonna be on the ice with this guy tonight. That's cool. So I know some guys were really antsy about the game notes, though. But
what's it like to take heat in a building that's got 20,000 people in there and they don't agree with the call you just made?
It's funny because you don't, when you're on the ice, especially in the National League and American League and busy in full barns, but you don't hear it. It's just a muffle. It's a loud muffle. When you're on the ice, you can't hear it. That's why the minors was a lot more fun in smaller rinks, because you could actually yell back at a fan. You could hear them personally yelling at you. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
It's like an
you just don't hear
unsanctioned game. You can give it back to them.
Well, yeah, any game, but yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I had fun. I had one in Kalamazoo. They used to have a guy with an eye chart. I'd go up there and I'd squint and I'd go right up to the glass, pretend I'm trying to read the eye chart. Like, I had fun with the fans. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. All right. Our referee in chief he posted up here. One of his favorite stories is when Frazier dealt with an off-ice issue with Theo Fleury in New York. I don't know that story, so can you elaborate on that, or do you know what he's referring to, Brad?
I don't.
I know. I don't know.
Not know.
Eric,
I know
the only
Fleury
Fleury-
punched out the mascot when he played for the Hawks. He punched out the Hawks mascot after he got ejected from the game. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only Fleury story I have is I can remember is I was actually working in Columbus, and Chicago was in, so they came in the night before, and I think Fleury was just gone into rehab maybe, or he was supposed not rehab, but he was supposed to be not drinking, I think, and I guess him and Phil Housley went out to the bar the night before, and of course they got in a fight, and it was all really hush-hush because Fleury's playing the next game with a big shiner, and everyone's like, oh, what happened? You didn't get that in the game. And it was just big, really hush-hush, but it was pretty funny because he's got this big black eye, and no one would talk about how he got it. But yeah, I guess they had a nice brawl in Columbus bar.
Could be. All right, now we're going to put this one up because Matt bought us some coffee last week, so he's entitled to his comment here. And he says, I heard a rumor that you're responsible for Brad Baumruck's professional hockey officiating debut. Is this true? And if so, why would you do such a horrible thing to the sport?
That is
Brad
true.
has fans.
Because Ballmer was one of the guys that would say, hey, can you go? Yes. I wouldn't even say. I'd just send an email or something. Hey, do you mind going? Yeah, sure, I'll go. So I was like, okay, this is easy. I'm filling in the assignment schedule. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll go. So it's like, okay.
There you go. Well, if you had a rule that you could change in hockey right now, what's a rule that you would like to see changed?
Take out the instigator rule. Mind you, hockey's got to get a lot tougher before that, but that would make it instantly tougher because it just would hold guys accountable. It would take out the chirping. It would take out the cheap shots, the stick work, and it would let the players police themselves. That, and ultimately, hockey should go back to that. I know they never will because of our soft culture, and everyone's got to love everybody, and we can't have physicality in hockey, but that's one for sure.
Do you think most of the referees share your same viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I think most referees aren't allowed to say it or wouldn't say it or wouldn't talk unless they're talking off the record. But I was never one, which bit me in the ass many, many times.
I appreciate the honesty. I mean, that's,
I just never really picked my
awesome.
spots. Yeah, I don't. It is what it is.
So Eric came back. He said it's when Fleury came out of the rehab and someone brought it up on ice. So Frazier had the other player apologize between periods and no penalties assessed. That speaks character to me.
I 100% see Kerry doing that for sure. I could see him doing that. Great guy,
I've never
Kerry
heard
Frazier.
the story, but
Yeah.
No,
He had great hair too.
I remember
yeah.
I worked with him in Washington, and it was really the only game I think I worked with him, and it was great because after the game we're staying in the Marriott, we had beers and we talked. But during the game it was great. He worked with you on the ice. He was like a good mentor, and then after the game he was like, I'd get undressed really quick, and nobody usually beat me, but he was so fast, and I'm just cracking my second beer, and he's already out of the shower, and he's doing his hair, and he like uses the old lady Aquanet, those big cans you see in the movies, like the big tins. And he's like doing his hair up, and it's like, holy shit. He's just like that. He's like, game's done, shower, his hair's amazing. And then at camp, one morning at camp, at training camp, he came out and he skated with our morning skate, and he didn't put anything in his hair. He's got a lot of hair. Like it was all over the place, flowing, and looked like Ron Duguay back in the day. It was crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, he did have a lot of hair. He'd have to have that the do that he had, no doubt.
That's right.
All right, Brad, what else you got for us?
I got nothing. You covered basically everything that I asked Bob when I first met him.
Well, we had to do a couple housekeeping things here, so I do need to remind everybody that we have the golf outing coming up, and that's happening on Friday, July 23rd. So if you haven't gotten your money in yet, did you find out, are people sending money in for this? How are we doing this? Because
we're going to get to that. I see something behind my computer screen right now. But we're going to get to that. I'm working on a solution for that. So We'll figure it out.
Okay,
I
well,
don't know what
just
these
keep in
people are
mind
doing
we're
that I
playing
live with.
golf, everybody, July 23rd. Sorry about that, Bob. We kind of cut you out. There was only 2
Sorry.
photos in
Oh,
that,
that's all
but yeah. So it's a great time, and if you haven't had a chance to do it, it's awesome. Hey, there's the big guys. Where's the other one? I only see one.
You gonna come say hi, Alex, or no?
There's Alex.
Well, what are you guys
What's up?
doing? What is that?
Has Alex got? Oh, it's cupcake time. Are we doing that right now? Are we ready for that?
I don't know what you're doing.
Rachel,
but okay.
Rachel, are you there?
Scott's asking
Is Rachel there?
Hi.
Hey, hi Rachel. Yeah, we thought we'd have a little birthday surprise for Brad. So yeah, let's we'll sing happy birthday to Brad. Bob, it's like Canada. Just go ahead and jump right in, okay?
There you go.
Really?
It's happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Brad. Happy birthday to you. Congratulations, buddy.
Bomber, how old are you?
Thank you. 38.
38. Yeah.
38 as of yesterday.
He's a youngster. He's still got some games
young
left
puppy.
in him. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. We've been almost doing the show for a year. I guess July 6th is our 1-year anniversary, if I did the math properly when we looked this up.
I think you did.
Okay.
I think you did.
Yeah, so we've had some great guests, and Bob, you've been amazing. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Anybody else have any questions that you
Karen's got a
guys
good
want to put
question.
out for Bob? Put them in the comments. We got a couple. Eric says,
Here we go.
did we
Let
sing
the
to Old
bashing
Man
continue.
River yet? Yeah, he's been sung to, okay? That's it. Karen, I'm interested in that there's an athletic trainer for the officials. Yeah, Karen is a trainer, and she does an amazing job, and she takes care of, she's willing to take care of officials at the games that she's at, which is rare. But what's your thoughts on that as far as that goes, Bob? Did they have a special person just for that, or did you use
we
the
had
team trainers?
Dave Smith at a Buffalo. I don't know if he's still with the National League. He might be, but he was a great guy. Like Smitty was ripped. Like he's the guy that he was probably he was brothers Barry Smith, who used to coach in Detroit. As his brother, and Smitty his skin was always tight because he was always in great shape, and he'd always like nutrition, and he'd always, hey, are you eating good on the road? Are you getting enough sleep? And at training camp, we'd have the craziest, toughest like fitness tests. Like it was ridiculous how tough it was, and a lot of guys would cheat and they didn't really care, but it was like holy moly. But he's the guy. He'd be the stretch Nazi. He'd be like, hey, are you stretching? Are you doing this? Are you skating? But he was good. He was a good guy. Like, in injury-wise, he knew what he was talking about. You could actually just call or email and say, this hurts. Well, and then he would set you up with the team doctor, the local team doctor, or you would make a call what city you're in to talk to the athletic trainer there. Like, he was a good guy. I think he's still there. If he's not, they probably have someone else doing it. But, yeah, of course, it's great. Officials are on the ice the whole game. They don't get breaks. They're on the road all the time. So they need somebody because they don't have teams have their own athletic guys. So it's good that we had one.
Yeah. Did they have like a nutrition program and stuff for you guys when you were reffing? Or?
Beer and wings and Marriott wings and they of course they suggest.
Well, that tradition has carried on. Trust me. We also have incorporated pizza into the diet as well. That's very important.
Yeah, they'd send you off ice summer program regimen and be like, yeah, whatever. And then when you're on the road, eat this and make sure you get up and have breakfast and this and that. Everyone did their own thing, and it wasn't an issue until it became an issue. So if someone got fat or they got lazy or they needed to use it as an excuse to give you shit about something, then they just put it in their back pocket. But everyone just kind of did their thing. A lot of guys still was out hacking rets and having darts in the parking lot, but a lot of guys still did that, but they just kind of have it hush-hush and definitely away from Smitty.
Yeah. Well, how many games a week are you expected to work when you're like working the NHL schedule?
I think a full-time guy probably works 2 or 3, maybe. And then when I was NHL American League working both, sometimes I could work 5 games in a week. They tried not to, but 4 for sure, 3 or 4 easily, but sometimes 5.
Do they try to keep you closer to your home territory versus, moving you across the country, or You
I
might
rarely
work New York to LA, or did they keep you like on the East Coast for this trip and then they moved you to the West Coast, or how does that go?
No, they just go like it. With the American League was good because when you're out east, everyone thinks so close. So I just go into Springfield, Mass, and book in the Marriott there, and I just drive everywhere around there. And staying with the NHL on the East Coast, it's pretty close. You can take a train. A lot of guys did that, took trains and whatever. But there was one I remember New Year's Day, 4 a.m. I flew from Toronto, Boxing Day morning. You guys have Boxing Day in the States? You guys don't have Boxing Day?
No, our friends from Canada celebrate it, so that's when we all send out the email or the Facebook notification for Happy Boxing Day. But
yeah. I remember flying 4 a.m. I flew to LA, so I reffed LA. I went LA, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Long Island, Washington, Atlanta, Washington, home. It was just I did the whole continent. It was ridiculous.
Now, you ever get your luggage lost at the airport where you'd have to show up at the rink and they would have to give you skates that weren't yours and equipment? I understand they do have like an extra set there in case of an emergency, but did you ever have that happen to you? Or?
Yeah, no, the only time I've ever had to wear someone else's equipment is when I first started refereeing. I got a gig. It was in Saginaw, Michigan, and it was a Colonial League game. I was there shopping with my family, and I had some beers and that, and watching the game, and all of a sudden I noticed a couple of guys that I worked with in the OHL were reffing the game, and one of the guys didn't show up. So after the first period, I went down, and I was like, "Hey, this is what's going on." "Oh, a guy didn't show up." I said, "Well, get me some stuff." So they got me players' shin pads, some Toronto Raptor track pants, somebody's skates, a yellow jersey, and a white helmet. And I went out and did lines, and that's actually I got hired after that because Bob Myers called me and said, "Hey, thanks for helping us out." So that actually started me in pro hockey. But losing my luggage, San Jose, they lost my luggage. But it got to the arena in time. So thankfully, but I had no clothes or anything for like a day.
Yeah, I've heard the stories where they have some numbers, like they have jerseys, you know, that are odd numbers that if you see an official wearing one of those, you know, there's stuff got lost at the airport.
Yeah, every rink has a jersey for sure.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Well, anything else, Brad, that you want to cover that I missed? Because Bob's been so nice to sit here and answer all my rapid fire questions.
I'm just glad to see Bob again and say hey to him and catch up to him. I think we caught up last March on a Zoom, and I always
our first big lockdown here. Yeah, it was our first big lockdown here, and we're still in. I think we're in our fourth lockdown. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, it's got to be kind of weird. Like Toronto, they had nobody in the building. I think they let 150 medical workers in to watch the game. Montreal was letting 2,500 people in, I think, for their games.
Yeah. We're still only allowed 5 people to gather outside.
How are your youth hockey teams doing? What's happening at like the rinks as far as like youth hockey is concerned?
Well, I'm the president of minor hockey here in Woodstock, and I just had to sign about 600 refund checks because the season got scrapped. Like we weren't allowed to play anything from out of city, and at times because we kept getting moved from a different lockdown color, restriction color, so sometimes we could play scrimmages, practice, and if we were in another one, you couldn't even scrimmage. Like that's how bad it was. So they lost a lot this year again. So hopefully we have a big minor hockey Zoom call tomorrow night for our area. So we'll see how next year is going to play out.
Well, what are you hearing from the NHL? I mean, so you've got one division that's in Canada. At some point, somebody's going to have to cross the border somewhere to play the Stanley Cup final. What do you think?
No one knows what's going to happen.
So it's still
that's a question I try to find out.
We've been asking for weeks, like, anybody know what's going to happen? But, I mean, we're already in the second round here, folks. There's only a couple rounds left.
Our borders are still closed.
Yeah.
Borders are still closed. So if Winnipeg beats Montreal and it's like, okay, what's going to happen now? Like, who's going to play? So I think what's going to happen, because restrictions are slowly getting lifted, but if Toronto won, it would have been even worse. But because it's Montreal, they might. But when it comes down to it, money talks, and the NHL's got a lot of money, and it's big business. So I'm sure they'll develop a loophole to make it work. Like they'll say they're quarantined and they're getting They'll all be vaccinated. Like they'll just make up a lot of stuff.
I got to think they're all vaccinated, aren't they? I mean,
no.
The NHL didn't require the players to get vaccinated?
No, I think they might. Yeah, not all of them. I'm sure some have their first dose and everything. Up here has been crazy because you're supposed to have 2 doses if you have a dose. I think it was like whatever it was, a month apart or something like that between your 2 doses to be effective.
We've got the 1 dose Johnson & Johnson, which is what a lot of professional athletes took, because I know the Yankees ended up having a bout with like 7 or 8 guys getting it. Of course, because they had their dose, they didn't get hospital. There was no big deal. They just had some symptoms. I don't even know if they're already back to playing. I'm not even sure because nobody's really paying attention to that anymore. But I was just kind of curious. So, but yeah, we've been asking for weeks, like if anybody knows what's going to happen with the Stanley Cup Finals and where they're going to go. I got to think they're going to go, come to the U.S. and probably go to one of the states that's pretty wide open, Florida, Dallas, something like that. But, who knows?
Yeah, like I think if Winnipeg wins, they're not allowed any fans in Winnipeg Arena. So, and they're in an upward slope of cases or whatever I see. So they're having problems because they're sending people to Ontario hospitals. So I think if Winnipeg beats Montreal, they'll go to the States and they'll just stay there. Whoever they play, they'll stay there till they lose and then they'll go home. But they'll play all their games in the States, I think. Who knows? Since we're
talking about all the different teams, I know we kind of ripped on Toronto earlier, but, I do want to ask you, Edmonton has had such great talent come through the door in terms of draft picks and everything else. What's going on up there? They can't get it together. I mean,
they need to move.
Toronto's bad, but Edmonton, come on. They've had some awesome players.
Yeah, but look who they draft. They draft high-scoring, high-marquee, one-dimensional players. Sure, they can back-check and play some sort of defense, but that's who they draft. They draft these guys that are awesome. They look great. They're flashy, and they get lots of points, and they win lots of awards. But they're not going to win you a playoff game. They're not going to go into the corners and beat the hell out of someone and take a beating to win a game. They're just not. Same with goaltending. Goaltending, it's like they just haven't had that key goaltending because goaltending wins playoffs.
So who's your favorite player in the NHL? Would that be like Brad Marchand or?
No, actually, it's funny though because I grew up. I was a Montreal Canadiens fan when I was little because I liked Guy Lafleur and Ken Dryden, and then
good choices.
Later in my career, later in minor hockey, when Mario Lemieux came in, I loved Mario. I wore 66. I loved him because I played center, even though I played tough and I played gritty, and I could go between Mario Lemieux style player and score lots of goals, and I could go to a Sean Avery guy and I could make everyone in the arena want to stab me. Like I could do that. So, but I loved Mario, and so Mario was my guy. So when I actually got to ref him on the ice and I got to meet him in the locker room, and it was pretty amazing. But yeah, it's funny though because I'm a gritty, tough player, and that's the way I like to play. But I loved watching Mario play. It was magic.
Yeah. What do you think of Gretzky now being out of the front office? Do you think he's done with the front office altogether, or do you think?
He just signed.
Because
I
he's
think
such
he
a
signed
great
with
player,
one of
they should put him into another organization and let him continue.
No, I think he just signed with one of the broadcasting things to do hockey. So he's going to be an analyst now.
There you go.
There you go.
I think that's what he's doing now.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, because he obviously wasn't the greatest coach. So he was the best player probably arguably in the history of hockey, but he just wasn't a good coach. And front office wise, he was like, I don't even know what he did. He was a figurehead, I think. I don't think he had any decision making. So he'll be good, hopefully good as an analyst.
Yeah. I'm sure he will. I mean, he knows the game. He knows it inside and out. He knows everybody, so he can certainly get to the story and get the right answer for whatever is asked. I mean, we've had some changes. What do you think? Do you miss Don Cherry in Toronto?
Oh, everybody misses. If you're a hockey guy, everyone misses Don Cherry because he spoke. He was honest, and
absolutely.
And now cancel culture can't handle that anymore. You can't speak your mind. That's why they got rid of guys like Jeremy Roenick, like in the U.S. Guys that would just
took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, another one with personality. And who was the other one that was from Boston? I don't think he's on the air anymore. Who am I thinking of?
Yes.
He was Is he still covering? I'm not even sure that he is. You know who I'm referring to? No, from he's a Boston guy.
Oh, I don't even know.
Boston.
He was
Mike
wasn't he
Milbury?
part of the players. that went
Milbury,
to the
yeah,
stands?
Milbury.
Mike
Yeah,
Milbury. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, I think he's off. They don't like hockey guys that they because they speak their mind and they only cater to every bit of hockey, like from the rugged muck guy to the fancy guy to the guy in the parking lot parking your car. Like they're just that. And now they got in Canada especially, they got all these guys that I don't even think played hockey as the hockey analysts and whatever. And they for some reason they got a big kick on National League women's hockey players, so they're doing the NHL and they're doing the commentating. Which nothing against women's hockey, but it's not men's hockey. It's a whole different world. Women's hockey's tough in their own right, but I don't know. I don't want to get in too much trouble with the women's hockey, but they do their thing and men's hockey do their thing. The good thing about Sportsnet, and I don't watch hockey much anymore because of all this nonsense, but at least they have Kevin Bieksa, and I think he's stifled a little bit, but he does bring out his hockey guy flair, which it's needed.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well,
Right.
guys, we do this every Wednesday. This is the Ref Room. Our guest today, Bob Langdon, 5-6 seasons in the NHL and just countless years of high-level experience. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your taking the time out and doing that. I hope you'll come back again.
Anytime.
We didn't drive you away with all these questions, but it's been fun. Good. I think you've been a great guest, so thank you. You've got all kinds of personality and your honesty. It really it resonates. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you,
Brad.
Sir,
happy birthday to you, my friend.
Thank you.
We got to let you go eat those cupcakes. You don't get a donut, but you get cupcakes. And if you guys like the show and you want to support us, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/refroom and offer up some caffeine for either one of us. Always appreciated. With that being said, we will be back next Wednesday at noon. You can check out the replays on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Bob, thank you for joining us again, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
Scott, do you want to put up that we are going to have an alternative show time? In June?
Well, I'll put one together. I think it's 2 weeks out. So next week, week we're on the regular schedule. We're providing. Now you've got internet issues going on at your place. Am I right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be fixed tomorrow. Let's not get me started.
Okay, so you'll be good. But yeah, I know a week from not next week, but in 2 weeks, we're probably going to do a later show that day because I got some games, and so. Unfortunately, you can't come over here and run everything, or I'd have you come over here and run it, and I'd get on an iPhone and do this with you guys. But so that's kind of the deal.
I hear you.
All right. So with that being said,
join Scott Smokin, Silz, and Brad Baumruck every Wednesday for Ref Room.
It's hockey talk for referees, coaches, players, and fans.
Join in the fun every Wednesday at noon. You can check out the replays on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. That's the Ref Room every Wednesday with Scott and Brad, two guys that love to talk hockey.